It is just about 3 a.m. here where I am, and boy am I rather cross about some nerd shit right now. And as such, I'm making chicken nuggets and ranting into a camera. By the way, this t-shirt comes from Rich in the UK. Thank you, Richard. I won't say his full name because duh, but I will leave a link in the description to his t-shirt store he just started. He makes custom prints. Not this one. This one's for me. This is a copyrighted image. He can't sell that. But I can wear it because it's sick as fuck, as they say. I love it. So I'm a Spider-Man fan. I don't know if you could tell. And my favorite eras of Marvel Comics are probably the 80s and the 2000s. So one of the things I really love to do is go back and read old Amazing Spider-Man from the 80s. And I love this era of Spider-Man for a lot of reasons. Especially this era here from like 1986 to 1988. That is like... Not only is it kind of peak Spider-Man in many capacities, but it's also like everything is happening. You have Peter losing his red suit in Web of Spider-Man and wearing the black full time for the first time for the first time in a significant period since like 252. Right after that, you have Spider-Man versus Wolverine, which is like, by the way, essential Spider-Man, and is something that haunts Peter to this day, even though it happened in the 80s. Right after that, you have Kraven's Last... No, right after Spider-Man Wolverine, you have the reveal of the Hobgoblin identity, which is this huge arc in the 80s. Like, the peak 80s villain for Spider-Man is the Hobgoblin. The Hobgoblin haunts Spider-Man throughout the mid to late 80s. Constantly, and it's like the big deal. If you think 80s Spider-Man villains, probably you think Hobgoblin and maybe Venom, although most people associate Venom with the 90s. But right after the Hobgoblin reveal, you have the wedding issue between Spider-Man and Mary Jane, and then the next month you have Kraven's Last Hunt, which is not only like one of the most iconic Spider-Man stories ever, it's also like a total tonal shift for what you can do in a Spider-Man story. And Spider-Man Wolverine is dark also, but I think that Kraven's Last Hunt is what brought Dark Spider-Man, who is already kind of a dark character, into like, oh shit, this is a thing. And like, I don't know, 10 issues later, not even 10 issues later, a couple issues later, you have the first appearance of Venom. Uh-oh, holy shit, it changes everything. Symbiotes, Venom, Cravens, shooting their heads off, etc., etc. But what I wanted to talk about specifically is the spider wedding, or the spider marriage. It's necessary, and I like it a whole bunch, and if you don't like it, I'll fight you. So you better agree with me. So, if you don't know the backstory of the spider marriage, it came from not a great spot. It came out of like just Stan Lee wanting them to be married in the comics because he had married them in the comic strip, which is fine. Obviously Stan Lee's one of the greats and everything like that. But Stan was writing the comic strip in the newspaper, the old Spider-Man comic strip. By the way, R.I.P. Comic strip Spider-Man, defeated by Morlun. And so he's like, hey, you know what would be great, true believers? I married Spider-Man and Mary Jane in the comic strip. What if you did that in the main Marvel universe, and we'll do a whole thing at Shea Stadium. We'll have a real wedding, a televised event. And they're like, yeah, man, okay, I guess. And so they married them, and it comes out of nowhere because a couple issues prior, Pete had like resigned himself to not engage romantically with MJ, and he was kind of like snubbing the Black Cat at the time. And then like Black Cat goes on vacation or whatever, and so Pete just marries Mary Jane out of nowhere, which is hilarious. But it also led to a really great era of Spider-Man. So in Kraven's Lost Hunt, it's like their first adventure as a married couple. They're newlyweds. And immediately there's a whole new level of dynamics added to Spider-Man. Not only does he have something to lose that he's never had before, he has something to fight for that he's never had to fight for before. And he's got somebody backing him up. There's somebody who knows him intimately, who knows his secret identity, who's with him and is able to play a role that nobody aside from kind of the Black Cat has ever been able to play in Spider-Man's life before. And it's beautiful, and I like it, and shut up if you don't. Anyway, and so they're married for like 20 years, right? And JMS is brought on board because they had killed Mary Jane, but actually she had just been kidnapped, and the plane crash was faked, etc., etc. And so then Pete finds Mary Jane because the fans were angry that they'd killed Mary Jane, and she's like, that was pretty fucked up. I think I'm just gonna go live in Los Angeles now. And then so they were separated, even though they were married. And the editors keep wanting to get rid of the spider marriage. It's like, oh, because it makes Peter too old. First of all, shut up. Second of all, you know what makes somebody feel older than being in a marriage is being separated from a spouse. Duh. There's no way once you cross that line to uncross it. No matter what you do, it's always going to be like divorced dad energy, right? They brought JMS on board and they're like, hey, get them back together and make it work and do a big marriage on them, and we'll pay you. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And he did, and it's arguably the best era of Amazing Spider-Man, those first few volumes of the JMS run. And it's like firmly establishing that not only do Pete and Mary Jane love each other and belong together, but Pete could not be Spider-Man without her. And she is a necessary, fundamental component to his life and to his career as Spider-Man and as a human being. And then they're like, nah. They're like, okay, but like, what if through contrived nonsense, no, actually, and the devil, Mephisto, undoes the marriage, but not really, because MJ still remembers it, and for some reason, Peter does at first, and then he doesn't. An issue later. And also, somehow that brings back Harry Osborn from being dead, even though that story is not only still canon in the post One More Day continuity, but had no bearing on the spider marriage at all, vice versa. Okay, fine. I guess we're cleaning the slate of continuity a little bit, but it's like, how does this make anything better? So at this point, Spider-Man had been married for like half of his publication career. So it's like, oh, young readers don't want to read a married Spider-Man, and young readers, they don't like him married. They don't, and it's like, okay, but like that's first of all wrong, because Spider-Man is doing very well right now, and most people reading Spider-Man circa 2007 are not old enough to remember him not being married. Most of the reader base is either interested in Ultimate Spider-Man, which is peak Spider-Man, it's great, or current Amazing Spider-Man, which is also peak Spider-Man. Everything is good in the Spider-Verse, except for Sins Past. We don't talk about that. But the point is like, oh, you're getting rid of the spider marriage for you, though. It's not like it doesn't affect the storytelling, it doesn't bring down the quality of the storytelling, and in fact JMS has proven time and again that it's an essential part of the character and is an extremely compelling means by which to tell Spider-Man stories. And it's like, nobody at this point reading comics, unless they're middle-aged or older, remembers Pete not being married. And even when he wasn't married to Mary Jane, he was still dating her, right? Like, he was still with her a lot of that time. There was periods where he was with Deb Whitman, or Black Cat. But he at the end of the day, he always came back to Mary Jane. And it's like, so you free up this character relationship-wise, which is totally uncalled for, but you free up this character to have flings and relationships and, oh, love triangles and will they, won't they, Archie bullshit. But it's like, to what end? Because Spider-Man at this point has firmly established himself in the cultural zeitgeist. He's been adapted into every medium there is to adapt. And in almost every single one of those adaptations, he's either with Mary Jane in some capacity or straight up married to her. And so it's like, these characters are fundamentally characters that will end up together and do belong together in like every universe. And you're never going to marry him to somebody else. Like, no matter what relationship you put Peter in post MJ, it's never going to have the same stakes emotionally or story-wise, because you know at the end of the day, they're not ever going to make him end up with somebody other than Mary Jane. There's no version of that character's future where it's not Mary Jane. So what the fuck, man? What's the point? And the point is, fuck you. You stinky little guy. I don't like you. Continuity and character progression be damned, I say to you, reader. Go lick my nuts. And there's no progress in Spider-Man anymore. Things happen in Spider-Man, but nothing matters. There's no progress, because at the end of the day, editorial wants to clean the slate and revert him to a character that he's never really been or hasn't been in 40 years. And it's a little sad that these editors are having their midlife crisis all over my comic book pages. Please just buy a hot rod or something instead. Please and thank you. Anyway, I believe my chicken nuggets are nearing completion, and I might make a video in the future where I talk more about 80s Spider-Man, because I really love that era of Spider-Man. But until then, I'm sorry I didn't make a Christmas video. I did say that I would, and then I didn't. So sorry about that. If it makes you feel any better, I did have food poisoning for a while, so that was pretty cool. Anyway,